Weapon talents have received some serious revision, and in this video we're going to go through what's good, what's bad, and what's changed without you even knowing it. Stick around. What's up guys, Skill up here with another Division video. 1.4 is still rocking on. It is on the way. The PTS is now open to all PC players, which is very exciting. Been seeing some awesome stuff on Twitter and in my comment section about how much people are loving it, which is awesome. And as I've been rolling out news, I've been trying to chug through bit after bit after bit, and today we're going to be talking about the change to weapon talents because there has been some big talent changes across the board. We're going to go through them all right now. So first of all, huge credit to Total, Spider, and Doc Holiday, the data miners who I'm forever in their debt. They're the guys that pulled this list and I'm going to be working from today. So first of all, I just want to talk about which talents have been removed from the game. The devs had foreshadowed that 2 of them had been removed, and those 2 are Restored and Steady. So which ones are those? Restored was the one that removed any status effect from you when you killed a target whilst under the impact of a status effect, right? Or the effect of a status effect. The challenge with that obviously was that, like, when you were on fire, for instance, you couldn't fire your weapon, you know what I mean? When you were shock turreted, you couldn't fire your weapon. So the talent really didn't make any sense at all, and it's really good that it's been removed because it really sucked. The other one that's been removed is probably the worst talent in the game. It was a talent called Steady, and what it did was it reduced your weapon sway after you got a kill for like 8 seconds or whatever. Weapon sway is if you aim down sights and just look down the sights of your weapon and not move your mouse or controller, you'll find that your weapon will move a very small amount. And because this amount is so small in this game, Steady almost like made no difference whatsoever. So yeah, it's been nixed. Great news, fantastic. Now on screen, I'm putting up a list of all of the weapon talents that haven't changed, or they've only changed by a very small amount. So for example, they might have been like a 23% chance to do something, and maybe they've become a 25% chance. So what you're seeing here is that there's no material change with regards to how these talents work. However, I would point out that even though some of these are listed as being unchanged, they actually have changed because the way the game is structured has changed. So I'll give you an example and maybe it'll make a bit more sense. So first up, Determined. Killing a target reduces skill cooldowns by X%, right? So it's a certain scaling factor. Now, before we would look at this and we'd think, yeah, that's nice, that's helpful, thank you very much, all good. But now the game has changed so significantly because skills are way more potent than they used to be. In particular, things like Sticky Bomb and Seeker Mine and Flame Turret would do way more damage. Our heal is more potent. We're forced to spec into electronics in different ways. There's just heaps of changes to the way that skills and their cooldowns work in this game. So the fact that this talent reduces skill cooldowns by a certain margin is actually a kind of a buff now. This talent is somewhat stronger than it was before, even though the talent hasn't been changed. Another good example is something like Ferocious. Damage against elite and named enemies is increased by 15%. Now, the value on this is exactly the same, but relatively speaking, 15% bonus damage is now a lot more bonus damage than it was back in patch 1.3. So what do I mean by that? So something like Deadly or Brutal, which has been nerfed, which I'll talk about later, used to give you heaps more bonus damage, right? Because they were just really gigantic levels of stats. They have been nerfed. This talent has not. So the fact that this talent has survived, we're giving you a bonus 15% damage, makes it one of the most damage efficient talents in the game. So it's kind of like, it's not any stronger than it was, but because a lot of other stuff is weaker, it therefore becomes a higher priority pick. Self-Preserved is another good example. Self-Preserved critical hits with this weapon heal the user for 3% of the damage that you deal. That was always a really nice talent, particularly on SMGs, but what's happened now is that the value or the total amount of crit that we're able to stack on our gear has been significantly reduced. Same sort of thing with critical hit damage. What does that mean? It means that you know, we're dealing less damage. In particular, you know, SMGs have got a like a 20% nerf across the board. This weapon or this talent synergize best with SMGs. So while this talent itself hasn't been changed, relatively speaking, looking at all the other factors that have changed, Self-Preserved is now a far less desirable talent than it once was. A really good example of something being both stronger and weaker is Trained. Critical hits increase signature skill resources by a certain percent. It's completely identical to what it was before. However, signature skills are now a lot more powerful, right? They're just better. So we kind of want us to use our signature skills more than we did before. But at the same time, because this is dependent upon our critical hit chance and we have less crit, this talent is both stronger and weaker at the same time. So it's a bit of a complicated one. You kind of need to see how it works for you. The very last one that I would point out that has received a significant buff, even though it is completely unchanged, is the talent called Skilled. Headshot kills with this weapon increase signature skill resources by a certain percent. Now, this was already a really great talent, but now that solo play is a thing once again, now that the recovery link has been buffed to provide us with that res, this talent has automatically gone to being a top tier talent, like in an instant. As I said, talent completely unchanged, but because of its place in the meta and how it can help give us like constant recovery link, you actually know you only need to kill it like 5 or 6 targets with headshots to be able to get your signature skill back using this talent. So for that reason, this talent is way stronger. So those are just 5 examples of talents that are unchanged by the devs in this round, but because of the meta changes and the stat changes and all that sort of stuff, are instantly either stronger or weaker than they were before. So do keep those in mind as you look at them. Now let's have a good look at the talents that have been nerfed this time around, and there's quite a few of them. First of all, Accurate has been nerfed from, it was around 45 to 48%. It has now been nerfed to 25%. This obviously is in line with the developers' desire to sort of make weapon handling more of a thing, make weapons a bit more difficult to handle, and so that means reducing amounts of accuracy and stability. Obviously, this talent was on the chopping block. Brutal is or was one of the favorites. Certainly not as good as it was before. It used to roll at around 23.5 to 25%. Now it rolls at around 12%. So a significant reduction, 50% reduction in that one. It's still nice, don't get me wrong, but it's absolutely not top tier like it used to be. So yeah, things are changing. Capable, using a skill improves the handling of your weapon for X number of seconds. Its duration has been increased to 15 seconds. It used to be about 12.5 to 14 seconds, but the handling bonus has been reduced from 50% down to 25%. Now, any of you that use an M1A will know that Capable was a talent that made your M1A feel like a laser beam. It felt like the Balanced back in the day, the original Balanced talent. So the fact that this has had its stability factor halved shows that the devs are very serious about making our weapons more difficult to handle. The talent Competent weapon damage is increased for a number of seconds after using a skill. The weapon damage has been reduced from 12.5 to 14%, right? It used to be that, and now it's 10%, but the duration has been increased from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. So, it is what it is. Coolheaded received a very minor nerf. That one reduces skill cooldowns when you land a headshot. The reduction used to roll up to as high as 6.5%. It's now capped at 5%. Deadly was absolutely one of the favorites. It was the one that gave you critical hit damage. It used to give you up to 28%, now capped at 15%. So again, nearly a 50% drop in that one. Quite huge indeed. Destructive has received a minor nerf. That's the one that does enemy armor damage against NPCs, not against players. It used to roll as high as 18.5%. It's now capped at 15%. And finally, we have Fierce. Critical hit chance is increased by a certain percent when you're using that weapon. The critical hit chance bonus has been reduced from it rolled as high as 9%, it is now capped at a hard 5%. So a significant reduction on that talent as well. So they're all the ones that have been hit, and you'll notice that a lot of them just really jacked our stats by quite a lot. Accuracy, stability, headshot damage, crit damage, skill cooldown rates. Yeah, all of them basically got something shaved off them, and it really shows that the developers are trying to narrow the gap between these highly optimized builds and these sort of more basic builds. They want to close that gap by reducing the impact of weapon talents on that. So this is how they're doing it. But fear not, because a number of talents have been significantly buffed. Adept is first up. Using a skill increases your critical hit chance. It used to roll at about 9%, but it only used to last for 5 seconds. Now it lasts for 15 seconds. So you're getting 3 times the value out of that. And it's exactly the same in terms of its critical hit effectiveness. So, an extra extra 9% crit chance of 15 seconds is really nice, especially considering all you need to do is use a skill, which is quite easy, especially on those skill power focused builds. Intense is next. The first bullet of a magazine has a chance to apply the on fire status effect. Now that used to be only a 13% chance. It's now a 25% chance. So 1 in 4 bullets, as the first bullets from your magazine, will set that target on fire. And of course that burn damage now does actual damage. It's been increased and it deals exotic damage. Rather than just incapacitate your target, it also deals damage to them. So it's a nice little boost for that one. Prepared. Damage is increased by a certain percent when you are more than 40 meters from your target. So this used to cap out at 14% bonus damage. It's been increased to 15% bonus damage, and the range requirement has been reduced from 40 meters down to 30 meters, which is really awesome. That's way more realistic. If you imagine the base of operations shooting range, the target dummy at the very back, that's actually about 28 meters away. So that gives you a sense of what 30 meters is, which is a fairly realistic distance from where we'll use our weapons. 40 meters was well and truly beyond where we would use most of them. In fact, most of them had nowhere near 40 meters optimal range, except for, certain marksman rifles. So this is definitely going to make this talent a lot more attractive. Predatory is probably the biggest one of the night. Killing a target regenerates a certain amount of health over time. Now, it used to give you 14% health. It has now actually been increased to 50% health delivered over 20 seconds. So this is definitely a really nice change. It's not as, funnily enough, if you're running solo before, you would actually get more healing out of it with the old Predatory, because it would kind of heal you for less, but it would do it faster. This one heals you for a total of 50% over 20 seconds, but it's a nice little it's very comfortable to use this, you know what I mean? It's sort of like kill a target and for the next 20 seconds, you have a passive heal on you that is going to restore 50% of your health. It's a really nice feeling to have, So I personally really like that change. I think it's a really nice buff. Responsive is up next. Damage is increased by, it used to be up to 14% when you were within 10 meters of your target. It actually used to roll between 12.5 and 14%. Now it is a guaranteed 15% bonus damage whenever you are within 10 meters of your target. Probably not as attractive as it used to be, because this used to be the talent that we use with SMGs, and of course SMGs aren't what they used to be, but hey, it's nice to know that this talent has been buffed. Next up, Talented. Killing a target with this weapon increases skill power by a certain amount for a certain amount of time. The skill power bonus has been increased. It used to roll 7.5 to 9%, and it's actually been increased to 15%, and the duration has been increased. It used to be 14 seconds, it's now up to 20 seconds. Now, this one right here is, in my view, now one of the most effective talents in the game. Given that skill power builds are definitely a thing, they're very possible. The idea that you're going to be able to maintain near constant 15% bonus skill power, if you're running solo, for example, that's just awesome. Particularly if you're running, say, the Firecrest build, which is really dependent upon both your skill power, your flame turret and the like, but also upon your weapon damage. So I think it's a really, really nice buff, and it absolutely brings, in my view, this talent up to top tier status. And finally, Vicious. Critical hit chance is increased by a certain amount while your health is full. That's what it used to do, and it used to be kind of crappy because we would always take one bullet and we would lose the value of this. Now, you actually get slightly less critical hit chance. It used to roll as high as 14%, but now you get 10%, right? So it's capped at 10%. However, you now get that benefit whenever you have more than 2 health segments, which is fantastic. It's a far more reasonable condition to get this proccing. I definitely expect this to become a much more desirable talent in the future. So that's it, guys. That's the complete list of weapon talent changes data-mined for your viewing and listening pleasure. I'm going to be putting together a video in the future after patch 1.4 goes live and all of these values are locked in and finalized, that talks about which talents are the best and sort of provides a tier for each of them, which are the highest priority ones based on builds. Be really interested to hear your thoughts on this based on what I've said. What are the talents that you're going to be chasing now in this new meta? So do let me know in the comments below. But for now, guys, there's heaps of videos on screen, as you can see, covering all the detail for patch 1.4. I'm rolling them out over the next few days, so if you can't click on them yet, you'll be able to soon. And for anyone watching on mobile, you'll be able to click them in the description below. For now, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, do drop it a like. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you in patch 1.4. Bye-bye.